Yo, what's up, guys? It's Noah here breaking down the NBA slate on Draftkings and Yahoo for Friday, December the 20th. We're going to run through this 10-game Friday night slate, go position by position, and I'll hit on the players that stand out to me the most. Just taking a first look at this slate, recording this video on Thursday night, so these are just some of my early thoughts. As we go through each position, I will build out a core of 5 players. These are 5 players I specifically see on Draftkings and Yahoo that I do like. Looking at this like the night before. If you guys want to get access to all of my updated content, I do provide a lot of updated and in-depth content over on Patreon. I post NBA content Monday through Friday. I have articles where I write up, or I pretty much break down the whole slate, write up the players I have the most interest in. I give an updated core plays as well. I'm updating my core plays all the way up until lock. I have a Discord chat that you can join with all the other Patreon subscribers where we're in there talking DFS throughout the day. I'm in there up until lock answering questions while I build out my lineups. I do also make a lineup building video that I post in the afternoon, which is pretty much me talking through the slate, giving some of my updated thoughts. Usually record that video around 4 o'clock Eastern time, talk through roster construction, how we should be looking to build out our lineups for that night's slate. So if you want to check out all the content I have available on Patreon, you can do so, link down below. Patreon.com/DFS by Noah. Link is in the description. I do have NBA content over there Monday through Friday, and then on the weekends I'm putting up NFL stuff as well. You can get both NFL and NBA content from me at a combined price, or at a combined cheaper price. I do have bundle packages available. So just check out all the stuff I have available on Patreon. If you do join by Christmas Day, you got 5 days left to join. If you do join by Christmas, you will be invited to our $100 free roll contest that I will be running for the Christmas Day slate. It'll be available only for Patreon members. So get signed up to the Patreon, have a chance to win $100 on Christmas Day. Also, if you do enjoy these videos, I would definitely appreciate it if you would drop a like down below. Subscribe to the channel if you have not yet. Click that notification bell so that way you get notified every time I upload. And also, link down below is my Twitter if you want to give me a follow. At DFS by Noah. I am very active over on Twitter, so you can follow me over there. But yeah, I think we got all the plugs out of the way, so let's go ahead and start off at point guard for today's slate. So I think at the top of this position, there's one guy that clearly stands out to me at the top, and there's just one team overall on this slate that we're definitely going to talk about quite a bit, and that's the Raptors. So the Raptors are going to be without, I can name all the players, they're going to be without Pascal Siakam. Fred VanVleet is questionable, so there's a chance he misses again. But we know Siakam's going to be out. We know Norman Powell's going to be out. Marc Gasol is going to be out as well. And they could potentially be without VanVleet. So that's 3 of their 5 starters who could potentially be out today. And then one of the starters, his backup, is going to be out as well. I mean, the Raptors are already a team that runs a pretty thin rotation, pretty tight rotation. They usually only play about 8 or 9 guys a game. I think it's very likely we see them run probably an 8 or 9-man rotation today. We're definitely going to talk about a lot of Raptors. I mean, this is going to be the focal point of the slate. I have a feeling every lineup I make today is probably going to have at least 2, if not 3 Raptors in it, probably more. I mean, there's so many good plays from this Raptors team. There's so much usage to soak up. Now that all these guys are out, there's a ton of minutes to go around. You're going to see a lot of guys off the bench play bigger minutes. Someone like Ronnie Hollis-Jefferson, Chris Boucher's 3,300, and with no Ibaka or with no Gasol, no Siakam, I think Boucher is going to get a lot of run today. And it's also a great matchup for these guys at home against the Wizards, who we know one of the worst defensive teams in the league, and they do play at a very fast pace. So at point guard, we definitely got to start off with Kyle Lowry. I love him on today's slate, 8,500 on DK. On Yahoo, he's the top point guard for me as well at $35. So we don't have much of a sample size with all these guys off the floor, but I can run it just so you guys can see. If we take Gasol, who's going to be out for this game, take him off the floor. Norman Powell, who's going to be out for this game, take him off the floor. Pascal Siakam, who's going to be out as well. We could take VanVleet off, but for now, I'll leave him just on the floor. And we can see what kind of numbers we get. So we don't have much of a sample size, but in 25 minutes, with those 3 guys off the floor, Kyle Lowry has a 37% usage rate, averaging 1.7 fantasy points per minute. Those are pretty insane numbers. VanVleet, he's played 20 minutes with those guys off the floor. He's got a 33% usage rate, averaging 1.23 fantasy points per minute. Ibaka has a 30% usage rate, averaging almost 1.4 fantasy points per minute. Like Ibaka, Lowry, these guys are some of the top plays on the slate today. And even though they got priced up quite a bit, Lowry probably still projects for over 50 DraftKings points today. Last game against Detroit, he put up 58 DK points. That was a game where Gasol got hurt, but Siakam was healthy in that game. Norman Powell played out that whole game. Like, we could easily get 55 to 60 DK points from Kyle Lowry today. His numbers are pretty insane with just those guys off the floor. I mean, you take Siakam off the floor, who's one of their highest usage players. That's going to, I imagine a guy like Kyle Lowry is going to soak up a lot of that usage. Marc Gasol off the floor, I mean, most of that, Gasol being off mainly is going to benefit someone like Boucher and Serge Ibaka. But, I mean, if Van Vliet's out, like, I love Kyle Lowry. Even if Van Vliet plays, I still think Kyle Lowry is a very good option at 8,500. We'll just kind of have to wait and see there. But for right now, he's one of my favorite plays at point guard. Even though he's priced up, he's still a very strong play today and still projects very well for that salary. I do prefer him over guys like Lillard, Drew Holiday, Booker, Kemba Walker. Kemba Walker is definitely interesting, though, especially if Gordon Hayward's out again. I did play quite a bit of Kemba once we got the news that Hayward was going to be out on the last slate. Kemba had a pretty good game, 45 DK points in 36 minutes. His usage does spike quite a bit when you take both Gordon Hayward and Marcus Smart off the floor, so we can look at those numbers as well. I believe he sees like a 6 or 7% bump in his usage rate. I mean, I'm not exactly correct on that. But just taking Hayward and Smart off this season, it is a pretty big sample size. You do have Kemba has played 185 minutes with those guys off the floor. 36% usage rate, 1.44 fantasy points per minute he is averaging. If we look at the differential there, that's a plus 6.8% bump in his usage. Really benefits with both those guys off the floor. Definitely like Kemba, 8,300. I do prefer Kyle Lowry, though, especially given his matchup and the amount of usage that Lowry's going to get today. But Kemba's also a really good option. D'Angelo Russell is someone I like a ton over on Yahoo today. I think that's where we definitely need to talk about him. So he's all the way down here at $30. Same price as De'Aaron Fox, cheaper than Chris Paul, cheaper than Ricky Rubio. I really like D'Angelo Russell at home against the Pelicans. This is a very favorable matchup. The Pelicans have allowed the most fantasy points to point guards this season. Russell's price on Yahoo is just way too low for this spot. Pace-up matchup, bad Pelicans defense. We know Russell's going to get a ton of usage with no Curry on the floor, no Clay as well. Even playing alongside Draymond, he still is the highest usage player on this team. I mean, this guy just has so much upside, especially when he's making his shots. And I mean, the Pelicans do have Drew Holiday, who can maybe match up with Russell, but Holiday, he's not going to lock down D'Angelo Russell. Like, Russell's just such a high usage player on this offense. He's going to get the ball. He's going to find ways to get shots up. So I really like him on Yahoo, where his price is down to $30. I think that's where he stands out the most. Definitely like plugging him into the core, at least as of now. We might need to make some changes later on in the day. I will provide my updated core plays on Patreon, but as of now, I do like Russell at $30. You can play him on DK as well. I just don't think he's as strong of a play. Really good matchup for John Morant. He's priced up, though, to $7,800, so that's probably going to keep me off of him, but Cleveland has been one of the worst defensive teams this season. Versus point guards, they've really struggled defensively. Fred VanVleet, I'm going to have a ton of interest in if he plays today. I expect him to soak up a ton of usage. We know they run a tight rotation in Toronto, so I expect big minutes for Lowry. Like, all the starters, Lowry, VanVleet, Ibaka, even OG, like, these guys are probably going to play close to 40 minutes. I mean, we might even see Lowry play over 40 minutes. I love these Raptors today, and VanVleet I definitely have interest in. It's $7,700 if he plays. Like, in the 6K range, though, not really much that stands out here. Jalen Brunson I've been playing a lot of recently with the injury to Luka Doncic. He's up to 6,400 on DK, and this is a tough matchup against the Sixers. Plus, it's a 10-game slate, so I don't think you need to go to him. He's been really cheap on Yahoo the last few days. They did price him up to $18, which, I mean, is still way too cheap. Like, if I'm going to play Jalen Brunson, it's definitely going to be on Yahoo, where he's only $18. Like, his numbers are really good with Luka off. He averages over a fantasy point per minute. He's been contributing in all categories, points, rebounds, and assists. Tough matchup, but the price is still really low on Yahoo, so definitely like going to Jalen Brunson over there. That's probably where I have the most interest in him. rather than paying $6,400 for him on DK. With no Blake Griffin, you could definitely look to Derrick Rose. With Blake Griffin doubtful for this game, Rose will see some more usage. Not nearly as much usage if like Drummond were to be out, but he will still see plenty of usage off the bench. 6K, he's a fine option in the mid-range. Don't think he's going to be like a core play for me, though, given it's a 10-game slate and we're going to have a lot of good options today. Probably going to have a lot of good value as well. Lonzo Ball, you could definitely look to. I do like him quite a bit at 5,300 against the Warriors. I like that matchup quite a bit for him. With no Blake Griffin, Bruce Brown should soak up some more usage. He's 5,100 on DK. I think you could definitely go there as a mid-range option. We'll need to watch the status of Seth Curry. Seth Curry's been playing actually a pretty good amount of minutes with Luka out, about 25 to 28 minutes off the bench. If he's out today, I expect a guy like probably DeLon Wright will pick up a lot of those minutes. DeLon Wright also listed as questionable, so we need to watch that. But if Curry's out and Wright plays, I do like Wright for 3,800 coming off the bench. Definitely could be in play as a value option. He'll probably play about mid-20s in minutes. Pretty productive player when he does get the minutes. And then I guess we could talk about these Raptors guys, the cheap guards. So if we get no Van Vliet today we already know that Norman Powell's going to be out, but if we get Van Vliet out as well, it's very likely either one of Terrence Davis or Patrick McCall starts at shooting guard. I mean, I really don't have a ton of interest in either one, especially when they're going to be playing alongside Kyle Lowry. Like, I'd probably just play whichever one starts. I mean, I know that's kind of like a cop-out, but I would just feel much safer with, like, in terms of minutes, I would feel much safer with the guy that starts to play the most minutes. Like, Davis in about mid-teens, about 15 to 17 minutes this season off the bench. I mean, he's been fine off the bench, averaging about a fantasy point per minute. He did get priced up to 4,100 though, so he's not even going to be like a lock and load for me. Just kind of a guy I would mix in as a value play. Like, I like the bigs. If I'm going to go for value from the Raptors, it's going to be with the bigs, like with Rondae Hollis-Jefferson, Chris Boucher, who are both really, really cheap, rather than going to the cheap guards. So even though these guys will see increased minutes today, I don't really see them as being core plays for me or core values. I just like some of the other value that we have. Like, honestly, if Seth Curry's out, like, I'd probably play DeLon Wright over those guys. But I think that's it for point guard. I think we covered everything there. So let's go ahead, talk about the shooting guard position. I mean, at the top of the shooting guard position, I think Bradley Beal is definitely interesting, especially with the Raptors losing all these guys. I do expect their defense to be much worse with potentially no Van Vliet, no Marc Gasol, no Pascal Siakam, potentially with no Norman Powell as well. Like, those are four guys that are losing. Their defense is going to be much worse. I know I'm going to be playing a ton of Raptors on this slate, so in lineups where I have like 3-4 Raptors, potentially even 5 Raptors, I'm fine running it back and just doing like a full game stack, playing a couple of these Washington guys. I do prefer Bradley Beal over Jimmy Butler if I am going to pay up at shooting guard. But honestly, like, I don't think paying up at shooting guard is going to be a top priority for me today. I like some of these mid-range options. I love Van Vliet if he plays today. Even if Karl-Anthony Towns is out, like, Andrew Wiggins is all the way up to 8K on Draftkings, so I don't really need to go to him at that salary. Like, he needs to get close to 50 Draftkings points to be a good tournament play at that salary. Obviously, he has that kind of upside when Towns is out, but with the price bump up, I don't really need to go there. I think he's still really cheap on Yahoo. Yeah, $34 on Yahoo. That's probably where I would have the most interest in him. But in the mid-range at shooting guard, I mean, someone like Jaylen Brown I think is definitely interesting. Without Hayward and Smart, he does see a nice bump in usage. He put up 40 Draftkings points in 35 minutes last game. With both those guys out, I'd probably project him for similar numbers today. He's going to play big minutes. He does see a nice little bump in his fantasy point per minute average with those guys off the floor. So you could definitely look to Brown at $6,900. On Yahoo, he's at $29, and he's small forward, so really like him over there. I mean, we'll talk about OG when we get to small forward, but Jaylen Brown, definitely one of my favorite small forwards on Yahoo today. You got Brunson you could play in the mid-range at shooting guard. You could definitely take a shot on D Rose coming off the bench, increased usage for him. Not much in the 5K range that really stands out. I mean, Troy Brown's been seeing pretty big minutes off the bench. Only got 22 minutes last game against the Bulls, which was kind of disappointing. I did have a decent amount of exposure to him on that slate. He was still productive, though, putting up 26 DK points in 22 minutes. Like, if we're going to get 26 to 28 minutes from Troy Brown off the bench, like, he's a fine mid-range option. Definitely not like a top value, though. Cheap plays, though, I guess we'll need to watch the status of Jeremy Lamb. He is questionable. If Jeremy Lamb is out, it's most likely going to be either Justin Holiday or Aaron Holiday getting the start at shooting guard. I mean, both of them got priced up. Like, Justin Holiday's $4,600. Aaron Holiday, I think he's like $3,800 or $3,900. I'm not even sure if you can play him as shooting guard. Yeah, he's $4,300. Like, honestly, with both those guys getting priced up, I don't really need to go to either one as core plays. I'd much rather go to Aaron Holiday, because he's the much more productive player. But both of them got priced up, so I don't expect either one to be like a top priority for me on today's slate. If Van Vliet's out, we know with Norman Powell out, probably Terrence Davis will get a start, so maybe you could look to him, but don't expect him to be a top priority for me either. So let's go ahead and move on to the small forward position. So at small forward today, you got guys like Butler, Ingram, Wiggins at the top. Brandon Ingram's coming off a big game in his last game against the Timberwolves. Good matchup again today against the Warriors. He's up to 8,700 though on Draftkings. Like, I'll probably be avoiding Brandon Ingram at that salary. I mean, he put up a monster game against the Warriors early this season, had 57 Draftkings points. 8,700 though, like, I'm not going to pay that price tag for Ingram, especially when we have the Raptor guys like Lowry for a little bit cheaper. Ibaka's like $1,000 cheaper, who I love today. Hard for me to go to Ingram at that salary. I think Yahoo, he's 36, or he's 39 on Yahoo. I mean, he's still more expensive than Porzingis. And honestly, I think I'd rather have Porzingis over Ingram. So good matchup for Ingram, but with the price up, I'll probably be looking elsewhere. Bertans is going to play huge minutes now with Rui out, no Wagner as well. Opens up a ton of minutes at power forward. He's starting as well. He did start last game against the Bulls, had 43 Draftkings points in 37 minutes. I mean, I'd probably project him for similar numbers today. 6,900 still feels a little bit too cheap, and in lineups where I do play like 4 or 5 Raptors, I mean, I'm fine plugging in Bertans and Beal in those lineups as kind of run back options. Like, those are definitely the two guys I would want to target if I'm going to target somebody from the Wizards today. Jaylen Brown I do like at the same salary as well. I think both those guys are pretty good plays at small forward today. In the 6K range, not really much that stands out here for me. 6K and below, though, for like cheap plays. The guy we definitely need to talk about here is OG Anunoby, 5,600 on DraftKings. Love him on today's slate. On Yahoo, he's at small forward, and he's only $19. He's definitely one of the top small forwards for me. So, I mean, we've talked about it with no Pascal Siakam, no Marc Gasol, potentially no Fred VanVleet, and no Norman Powell. Like, that's just so much usage to go around. Even though OG's like not much of a high usage player, he's still going to play huge minutes today. I'd expect probably 36, close to 40 minutes. He played 35 minutes last game against Detroit, had 35 DraftKings points in that game. I mean, I'd expect him to be about a point per minute player this season. We can look and see what kind of sample size we have on him with all these guys off the floor. So take Gasol, Powell, and Siakam off the floor, and then we can see what kind of numbers. I don't expect them to be like crazy, but we'll just take a look. So OG's played 32 minutes with all 3 of those guys off the floor this season, averaging about a fantasy point per minute. I mean, he's not a high usage player, only an 18% usage rate, but I do expect him to be about a fantasy point per minute player with all those guys off the floor. And if he's going to play close to 40 minutes today, I mean, 5,600, he probably projects for about 35, 36 DK points, which is just way too low at 5,600. It's a great matchup against the Wizards. Love OG Anunoby today. He's going to be one of the many Raptors that I do roster. Him and Lowry are 2 guys I really like. And then when we get to power forward and when we get to center, we'll talk about even more Raptors that I'll be looking to target. So he's definitely my favorite play to go to in that mid-range. Yeah, Troy Brown you can play here, who I don't mind coming off the bench. TJ Warren's also questionable for the Pacers, so if he were to sit, we could maybe get someone like Doug McDermott in the starting lineup. I think he's really cheap. I think he's like 38 or 3,900. Let's see. McDermott's 3,600, so McDermott would definitely be in play as a value if TJ Warren's out. I would imagine that he starts. So that could be someone worth looking to. But yeah, I think we pretty much covered like all the value. I guess we can talk about Ronnie Hollis-Jefferson since he is small forward eligible. So it's very likely that he probably starts this game at power forward. We can look at the rotation from their last game, from the Raptors' last game. So they went with the starting lineup of Kyle Lowry, Norman Powell, OG Anunoby, Pascal Siakam, and Marc Gasol. Obviously, 3 of those 5 guys are going to be out today, so we don't expect Gasol or Siakam to start. I expect Ibaka starts at center, and then one of either Chris Boucher or Rondae Hollis-Jefferson is going to start at power forward. Just looking at this, their rotation from that last game against Detroit, whenever Gasol came off the floor, you had Serge Ibaka obviously replace him, but in the time when Pascal Siakam was not on the floor, you did have, I think it was Rondae Hollis-Jefferson, or Rondae Hollis-Jefferson came in the third quarter, played a decent amount, played about half of the third quarter. Looks like he subbed in for OG during that time period. Let's see who they had on the floor at that time. So they had OG, Powell, Siakam, Lowry, and RHJ on the floor in the third quarter. So, I mean, I'd expect RHJ probably draws a start here at power forward, and we'll probably have Chris Boucher playing a lot of backup center, probably get some minutes at power forward as well. Like, it's just going to have to be a wait and see here on what the Raptors starting lineup is. Like, I'd expect RHJ starts at power forward. I'm pretty sure he's been like a point per minute player this season. 0.94 fantasy points per minute in 49 minutes with all 3 of those guys off the floor. 4,100 on DK. They did price him up, and Boucher they did not price up, so I think I'd prefer Boucher, especially because of how good Boucher is for fantasy in terms of like point per minute. On Yahoo, you do have Rondae Hollis-Jefferson for minimum salary at power forward. There is another minimum salary power forward that I do like over there that we'll talk about in a second, but you could definitely target RHJ at minimum salary on Yahoo, especially if he does wind up starting. He'd probably be one of the better values at the position. But I did forget to talk about Markieff Morris. So I don't think he's small forward eligible. Yeah, he's not small forward eligible on DK, so we'll talk about him when we get to power forward. But yeah, as a value at power forward, you can definitely target RHJ, assuming he does start today for Siakam. But now moving on to the power forward position. At the top here, I do really like Porzingis, even with his price coming up. I mean, he's 8,500 on DK. He was 8,300 on the last slate. Once we got some value on that last slate with Karl Anthony Towns being ruled out, I was able to get Porzingis into my main builds. Definitely came through for me. 51 DraftKings points in 38 minutes. I mean, it makes sense that he's producing so well. If you look at his numbers this season with Luka off the floor, they're pretty insane. He sees a drastic bump in his usage. So let's take Luka off the floor. I always struggle to find the players whenever I'm recording my videos. Can never find where they are. So with Luka off the floor this season, Porzingis has played 201 minutes, 32% usage rate, averaging 1.45 fantasy points per minute. If we look at the differential, that's a plus 6% bump in his usage rate, averages 0.28 more fantasy points per minute. So he's so much more productive with Luka off the floor. Against Philly, it's not a good matchup. He's going to see plenty of Joel Embiid, plenty of Al Horford in this game. This Philly team is one of the better teams in the league in terms of defense. They're a very good defensive team. But Porzingis has had tough defensive matchups against the Heat, against the Celtics, and he's still been able to come through against Milwaukee as well. He's put up over 50 DraftKings points in 3 straight games. And honestly, if this game can stay close, I wouldn't be surprised if we get another 50-burger from Porzingis. Still like him on DK today, especially because there's going to be plenty of value, I would imagine. Should be able to fit him in at 8,500. Serge Ibaka, though, the guy that I do want to talk about. So he got priced up a ton on DraftKings. He's 7,400 today. He was 5K on the last slate. In the game that Marc Gasol got hurt, Ibaka wound up playing 31 minutes and put up 48 DraftKings points, had 25 points, 13 rebounds, 2 assists, and a steal. I do expect that Ibaka starts at center today with Marc Gasol out. Also with Pascal Siakam out as well. I mean, it's hard for me to see Ibaka failing today, even at this salary. He probably projects for over 40 DraftKings points today, if not more. I mean, I'm pretty sure he's averaging 1.3 or 1.4 fantasy points per minute this season with both Gasol and Pascal off the floor. Let's take both those guys off the floor, see what kind of numbers Ibaka has. We'll know, or whatever numbers we get, those will probably be minutes he's played at center this season. So 149 minutes with both Gasol and Siakam off the floor. Ibaka has a near 30% usage rate, averaging 1.19 fantasy points per minute. I mean, those are pretty solid numbers. And now we get him in the matchup against the Wizards. Worst defensive team in the league. Terrible defensive team against bigs. This could be another spot where Ibaka goes for 20 and 10 easily. Even with the price up to 7,400 on DK, I still think he's a top play at that salary. If we go over to Yahoo, I mean, honestly, Ibaka might be in every single one of my Yahoo lineups today. He's only $21, He's at center, which sucks, but $21, that's just way too cheap for Ibaka. Like, he should be like $35, $36 today. Like, I imagine he's going to be one of the more popular players on Yahoo, but you just kind of have to play him at that salary. Even if he's 60% owned, like, I want to have 80, 90% of Ibaka. Like, he's going to score 40 fantasy points today. There's a chance he goes for 55 to 60. $21, lock that in on Yahoo, one of my favorite plays over there. And even at 7,400 on DK, like, if we're going to get Ibaka playing 36 minutes today at center against the Wizards, there is so much upside for him to crush this price tag. So love him in that mid-range. I do really like Kevin Love as well, 7,200. I do prefer to go to Kevin Love on Yahoo. I did have a lot of exposure to him on the last slate. He was $23 in a matchup at home against the Hornets. We're seeing in competitive games this season, Kevin Love plays about 32 to 34 minutes. He's been very productive this season in games that are competitive. Like, the only reason he's had such a bad season in terms of fantasy is just due to blowout. Like, all these games where he scores like 20 fantasy points are because he only plays 20 minutes and the Cavs just get blown out. Well, now the Cavs are only 1-point underdogs here. This is going to be a close game. Love's price has not moved on Yahoo. He's still $24. Easily one of the best power forward plays over there. Definitely like him in that mid-range. Really like Bertans, though, who I talked about. Blake Griffin is questionable, or I believe he's doubtful for today, so we will discuss who I like there with Blake Griffin doubtful. Gordon Hayward's questionable, so we'll need to watch that as well. We do know that DeAndre Ayton's going to be out. Frank Kaminsky is up to 5,700 on DraftKings, so it's hard for me to consider him like a top play today. But he has still been very productive, even in limited minutes. I mean, 35 DraftKings points in 23 minutes in their last game. I imagine he gets about 30 minutes today. With Ayton out, he probably starts at center. You could definitely look to him as a mid-range option. Don't think he's my favorite play, but at least would be in my player pool. But the guy that I do want to talk about here is Markieff Morris. So he got priced up quite a bit to $5K on DraftKings. We do know that Blake Griffin is doubtful to play today. I have a ton of interest, though, on Markieff, and the reason I didn't plug RHJ into the Yahoo core, at least as of now, is because Markieff is also minimum salary, and I do slightly prefer him. So we know that Blake's doubtful today. We do also know that Christian Wood is going to be out. I mean, that just frees up a ton of minutes in the front court. We can look at the numbers this season with both Wood off the floor, and then we can take Blake off the floor as well. I mean, Markieff Morris is not like a high-usage player or highly productive player, but still this season, in 461 minutes off the floor from those two guys, he's averaged about 0.8 fantasy points per minute, 21% usage rate, 11% assist percentage, 9% total rebound percentage. So not great numbers, but at minimum salary on Yahoo, like, you don't need him to go for 50 fantasy points to pay off that salary. Like, if he gets 25 to 30, he's a great play at minimum salary. Even if he gets you 20, he's not really killing your lineups at only $10. So I think we easily get probably 20 to 25 fantasy points from Markieff today, if not more. I know he started that game against Washington when Blake was out. 32 minutes, 32 fantasy points in that game. Had a really big game against Houston. He really benefited that game with Drummond out and then Blake getting hurt. 27 minutes, 25 fantasy points. I mean, I'd probably project him for about 30 minutes today and 25 fantasy points, which is definitely good at $10 on Yahoo. Like, it's very close between RHJ and Markieff. That's who I like most at power forward. Honestly, I feel like I'm going to have quite a bit of lineups where I just play both guys together. Both of them look like top values at the position. Right now, though, I do slightly prefer Markieff. But then for value at power forward, really not much I like here for cheap besides RHJ, who I do like if he starts today, and I imagine he will start. We definitely need to talk about Chris Boucher, though. I guess that is the one guy I forgot to talk about. So Chris Boucher on DraftKings is all the way down to 3,300. Even if he comes off the bench, like, if we get 20 to 22 minutes of Chris Boucher in this game, like, he's such a productive player. It's hard to avoid him even at that salary. We can look at his numbers with both Siakam and Marc Gasol off the floor this season. I know he has really good numbers. I mean, even playing alongside those guys, he's still been very productive. So Chris Boucher's played 121 minutes this season with Gasol and Siakam off the floor. He's averaged 1.18 fantasy points per minute. So even if you give like Chris Boucher 22, 24 minutes, he still probably projects for close to 30 DraftKings points. 3,300 on DraftKings with power forward and center eligibility. even coming off the bench, I think he's one of the top value plays today. Like, they're just so thin in the front court. Like, Ibaka, Boucher, RHJ, like, these guys are going to have to play huge minutes today. I'd expect Ibaka probably plays 34 minutes. RHJ probably plays like 32 minutes. And then Chris Boucher probably plays like 24, 26 minutes. And then maybe you'll have some minutes goes to some other guys. But I expect those three guys to be the main beneficiaries with Gasol and Siakam out. With how productive of a player Boucher is in terms of fantasy points per minute, 3,300 on DK, great matchup against the Wizards. Really hard to avoid him on today's slate. On Yahoo, I like him a ton as well. The only thing that sucks is he is at center, so if you want to play him like in your lineups, you're probably going to have to either play him with Ibaka, which I'm fine doing, or you're going to have to get off Ibaka, which I don't really want to do. I still will have lineups, though, where I do go with Boucher and Ibaka together, especially if Boucher starts, like, lock him in, top value play, but I don't expect he starts. I do expect him to come off the bench, but still such a good value on DraftKings, 3,300. You can play him at power forward and center. Honestly, let's go ahead and let's plug him into the forward spot because that's probably where it makes the most sense to play him. 3,300. So yeah, I think we covered power forward. Let's go ahead and run through center real quick, guys, just before we end the video. So at the center position, we do have two guys over 10K at this position. You got Karl-Anthony Towns for 10.8 and Joel Embiid for 10K. So both guys I don't have a ton of interest on today's slate, especially since we do know that Blake Griffin's going to be doubtful today. My favorite spend-up option at center with Blake doubtful is definitely going to be Andre Drummond, 9,600 on DraftKings. I like him a ton on this slate. I think he's one of the best center plays on Yahoo as well at $47. Only reason I didn't include him into the core is just because I already went with Ibaka at center and I didn't want to plug in two centers in there. But I will definitely have a lot of exposure to Drummond as well on Yahoo. So we can look at his numbers this season. Just with Blake off the floor, I know his rebounds are way up. I mean, he's already a great rebounder. But if you take Blake, probably take Wood off the floor as well. Like, his rebounds are going to be through the roof. So this season with both Blake and Wood off the floor, Drummond's played 415 minutes, 26% usage rate, averaging 1.44 fantasy points per minute, 13% assist percentage, and a near 26% total rebound percentage, which is towards the top of the league. I mean, this is easily a 20-20 spot for Drummond. If we look at rebound percentage this season, this Boston team is definitely a team you could beat on the glass. I mean, they're about middle of the pack in rebound percentage. Defensive rebound percentage, though, they do rank 24th, so they really struggle to get defensive rebounds. I think we could see Drummond get a lot of putbacks in this game, a lot of offensive rebounds. Like I said, I think this is easily a game where he could go for 20 and 20. Whenever he has his biggest games, like whenever you get ceiling games from Drummond, it's usually when Blake is out. That's when he's just more dominant on the glass. He can get more assists as well. Like 22 points, 18 rebounds, 23 points, 15 rebounds. Like, the dude is a lock for a double-double. He's pretty much a lock for 20 and 10. If this game stays close, we know he's going to play probably 36 to 38 minutes. Drummond he didn't get priced up enough for Blake being out today. He should be probably one of the most expensive centers, if not the most expensive center on today's slate. So, love him on DK at 9,600. If Cat is out, I would definitely have some interest in Jokic. I would come a little bit of a better matchup for him. 9,400. Bam Adebayo against the Knicks, I really like. I mean, Adebayo's just been crushing this season, playing 34 to 36 minutes a night, over 48 DraftKings points in 3 straight games. Still, my top priority at center today is going to be Drummond, and paying up for Drummond is going to be a top priority for me. But I don't mind Adebayo. I obviously like Porzingis as well. DeAndre Ayton's out, so we can talk about some potential value we get there. JAYLEN I still think is a little bit too cheap for the upside that he gives you in tournaments. 26 minutes last game, but still put up 40 DraftKings points. I mean, this guy only needs 25 minutes to put up 40 DK points. He's just such a productive player. Good matchup against the Cavs as well. Definitely like him in the mid-range. In the 5K range, I mean, there really isn't much here that stands out. At least just looking at the slate the night before. Derek Favors I would have some interest in, but he's just limited in minutes right now, and it seems like he's only going to play about 20 to 24 minutes until he can really get things ramped up. So hard for me to have a ton of confidence in him with his minutes being limited. Even if Cat is out today, like Jang's up to 4,900, probably won't be playing much of him. Ian Mahimi's still really cheap. I expect pretty big minutes from him as long as he can stay out of foul trouble. Last game he played 24 minutes, but he fouled out in 24 minutes. Like, he probably plays 30 minutes today with no Rui, no Wagner, no Thomas Bryant. Like, he's like their last big that they have. Definitely could target him at 4,700. Not the best matchup, but still really cheap on DK. But Aron Baynes, the guy I wanted to talk about. So he's 4,200 on DraftKings. I don't think he starts today. Like, I think they're going to continue to start Frank Kaminsky, but that would just be something we have to wait and see. If Aron Baynes does move into the starting lineup with Ayton out today, I would definitely like him as a value center. Only 4,200 on DraftKings. This is an 8 o'clock game, so I'm not sure if we'll know before lock. Just being wait and see there. Like, if Baynes comes off the bench, not as interested because he'll probably only play about 20 minutes off the bench. But if he does wind up starting, I'd feel safer projecting him for like upper 20s in minutes rather than low 20s. So yeah, I think that's it for center, guys. I think we pretty much covered everything. I know this is going to be a long video, but it's a 10-game slate. There was a lot to break down today. I wanted to give you guys as much information, as much analysis as I could into these videos. Like always, if you want to check out the Patreon, I have a ton of content over there as well. If you do enjoy the videos I put up on YouTube, you can see all the stuff I have available over on Patreon. Just get even more content from me. I can provide you with more value, more analysis over there with my articles, my private videos. I have slate breakdowns on Patreon, give updated core plays. Like I said, I have like private videos, roster construction videos. Definitely check out all the stuff I have available on Patreon. And like I said at the beginning of the video, if you do sign up by Christmas, you will be invited to our $100 free roll contest that I'll be running on the Christmas Day NBA slate. But yeah, I think that's it, guys. Drop a like on the video if you enjoyed. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. As always, appreciate that. You can hit me up on Twitter if you have questions. Feel free to give me a follow over there at DFS by Noah. But good luck tonight. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video. Peace.